Hello, Professor Chavez. I'm Hector Garcia, and I'll be presenting my final exam. First, I want to address the first question, which is discuss 3 things learned in class that I think everyone in the U.S. must know. The first thing that I think everyone in the U.S. must know is that um, Mexican American people have been involved in American history far longer than many might think. In the text No Estás en Tu Casa, which is part of the book Mexicans in the Making of America, Chapter 2, it explains that the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo from 1848 shifted the border between the U.S. and Mexico, which made all the people living currently at the time living in the U.S. in Mexico part of the U.S. Many of which were eventually kicked out of their own land and pushed into they were racially discriminated. Another part that the Mexican American people were very involved in is agriculture and the construction of the railroad system in the United States, as well as mining. This can be found in the text of the Revolution to Depression from 1900 to 1940. Many of the Mexican American people that were forced into U.S. territory due to the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, they did not want to change their heritage, their traditions, their religions and stuff, and therefore they were discriminated against, even though they were pushed into poverty and segregation. Many of the communities remained rooted and resilient. The second thing that I think all people in the United States must know is that the Mexican American people were very involved in World War. The World Wars that the United States were part of. They were actually they were the greatest minority within the service. In World War One, thousands were part of the units, and in World War II, over 500,000 Latinos served. This coming from the text, Becoming Good Neighbors, from making Mexicans in the Making of America, Chapter 3, as well as the text Hispanic Military Service in World War I and World War II. Even though the Mexican Americans were part of the war, many did not. Many were still being segregated against, and which does not seem coherent. But they were basically forced to fight on both sides. but the Mexican Americans were pushed into serving due to propaganda known as the Good Neighbors, but they were still being segregated against. The third thing that I want to that I think everyone in the United States must know is that the civil rights movements that the Latino and Mexican American community, Chicano community, was involved in and still is. Coming from the text, the video "Prejudice and Pride: Latino Americans," episode 5, with the East LA walkouts, where many students and workers and activists were challenged inequality head on. The students protesting for about unequal education and the demand of bilingual programs in order to not erase and for the respect of their own culture. Something more important that I think is more important is that the people were looking for political representation of their culture within the U.S. government. For labor rights and the inclusion of Mexican Americans in American democracy. In Chapter 6, the Chicano movement of Mexicans in the Making of America, representing with people like Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta, which formed strikes, boycotts, and in the seek of labor rights for farm workers, as well as other Mexican American people. This through murals, literature, and theater celebrating the Mexican American identity. Sorry. The next thing that I wanted to address was the second question, which states, how might this class help prepare students for the future demographics of the U.S.? As you stated, 30% of the U.S. population will consist of Latino descent, and I think these classes will help us by understanding Mexican American history, helping dismantle stereotypes about Latino culture and establishing proper Chicano history or heritage, which would in part foster respect for all cultures. With ethnic studies courses, it would encourage students to see themselves as part of a more diverse democracy, and this would create empathy and inclusion within the community. Lastly, addressing the question if will we need Chicano or Chicana studies in 2050. I do believe that we will need these types of classes in the year 2050. Sadly, with even though the population of Mexican Americans will be uh, greater than the greatest minority, or it's going to be 30% of the American population, there would still be some discrimination and segregation involved, sadly. Uh, and I think Chicano studies will be necessary to document ongoing struggles and teach students to analyze race and power and provide a space for cultural pride and political empowerment. Thank you.